I would say to start out, just create content for yourself. Create content that you love, create content you enjoy making. Because if you focus on what people like, what people want, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? Are they going to hate it? You just bury yourself into a hole deeper and deeper. And before you know it, you can't even get out. What I started to do now, like I used to post content more consistently, but now I'm just like, I have a life outside of social media, and that's where my consistency is gonna be.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Embracing Only podcast. Olivia and I are so excited to have with us today Kezia Israel, a transformative verbal identity strategist and a celebrated LinkedIn top voice in copywriting, marketing. With over 8 years of experience in the marketing and advertising industry, Kezia has honed her skills in crafting persuasive copy that not only increases brand awareness, but also drives meaningful consumer engagement across various platforms. And to the marketer in me, it's amazing because I'm learning every day when I pop into her LinkedIn. She's the founder of the Verbal Identity Studio. Kezia specializes in solving brand messaging and communication challenges for FinTech companies that are passionate about their mission. Her expertise has empowered over 100 brands to craft authentic stories through structured narratives, helping them outshine their competitors. She's honed in on those underdogs of the FinTech industry. Her work has reached a cumulative audience of over 2.5 million people through engaging social media content on Instagram and LinkedIn over the past 5 years. And her ability to adapt her voice and style to meet those brand objectives seamlessly between inspirational and straightforward sets her apart in the industry. Kezia brings strong research capabilities. She's been a top 100 marketing and advertising leader by Marsam and has been recognized for her passion for storytelling in every project. We are so excited to walk through Kezia's journey that spans 2 countries as she navigated her way to becoming CMO for a recent startup. Welcome to the Embracing Only podcast, Kezia. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you. That introduction was sparkling.
You're sparkling.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Kezia, as we were doing a bit of research on you and Archita have interacted more, but as I was doing some research to prepare today, I went straight to LinkedIn and started to dive into your content. One of the first things that stood out to me, one is your pretty amazing style. I think just perusing your LinkedIn, it's like, there's some sass in here. I like it. But under your CMO job title, you specifically said, WTF am I doing? And that at times you feel like an imposter. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you feel that way? And maybe part 2 is how you're overcoming it in your day-to-day. Because so many women, right, when we get these big seats as a CMO, as a CHRO, as whatever acronym you want to use, but we're sitting at the top, we suffer with this imposter syndrome. So how are you navigating that?
The reason I feel like that, I've never been a CMO of anything, only had marketing roles. So when the opportunity presented itself, it's okay, well, what am I supposed to do? What does a CMO do? How do they create impact and all these things? So I'm just learning as I go. I understand marketing. I know what marketing is. I know how to do it. In that CMO role, especially for a brand that isn't in America, the audience is different. The mindsets are different. So it's a lot of learning on the fly. So I'm just learning as I go every day, taking insights from data, insights from audience engagement, from member feedback, and just really shaping and developing my experience in that role.
I love that. So this is something you mentioned, especially because the brand is not in America. You're learning on the fly, but you are from Jamaica. You understand the culture, right? So it's really ran a parallel path with my experience more recently when I stepped out of the corporate world and I went into being a solopreneur and a fractional CMO for different startups. I ended up working with startups that had connections to India. And I had never done business in India because you can be from a country, but it doesn't mean you understand how to
Yes.
do business in that country. I remember like Olivia was a part of my early journey with one of those startups. I wanted to pull my hair out because I was like, what the heck? Why are my country people driving me up the wall? Why is it so hard to do business here? Because there's an assumption like, oh, you're from here. I'm like, yes, I'm from here, but I left the country when I was 17.
Yeah.
Doing business in a country is very different. How are you navigating that kind of dichotomy between you're from there, but you still have to learn the ropes of how to do business there and do it really well?
So I left Jamaica when I was 16. So going back to do business there, completely different. And you have to add in the variable of COVID. COVID just happened. So the psychologies are different, how people respond to things are different, how they think about brands are different. Navigating that to relearn the culture the way it is today has been interesting and helped the Caribbean shine, especially Jamaica. I do whatever is necessary to learn, engage with the people there, and develop my skills and knowledge in that sense.
I love that because I feel like there's a level of you're operating from a growth mindset, is what I just want to call out for our audience. In a second, I'm just going to ask you your opinions on what a growth mindset means to you. What I love about a couple things that you're saying is you're like, one, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out.
Right.
Anyone that has any measure of success in this world has that attitude. If you tell yourself, I'll figure it out, guess what your brain is going to do? That's the mission. We'll figure it out. If you go into it saying, oh my God, I've never done this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to fail. This is going to be awful. Guess what your brain's going to do? Yep, roger that. You're going to fail. This is going to be awful. We're going to make this difficult for you. Your brain is so powerful. And it really takes directions from us based on what we feed it. So
Yeah.
I love that you went into it saying, you know what? I'm going back to my homeland. The mission is to highlight the country that I love and to figure out how to do business there. And the rest is just noise. The rest you trust yourself to figure out. I do think you really embody this concept of growth mindset. Can you tell us about how you think of the concept of growth mindset and other ways you're implementing that in your day-to-day journey?
I think for me, having a growth mindset, there are no barriers. There's only unlimited potential. Going into a situation or a job where I don't fully know everything or understand everything isn't a barrier for me because I'm the type of person I will figure it out. I'll do whatever needs to be done, read whatever books I have to read, study for how many hours I need to study for to make sure I understand what I need to understand so I can get the job done. So for me, a growth mindset is void of limits.
There's unlimited potential. Most people's natural entry point into something unknown is flight, fight, or freeze. For a lot of folks, it's like this frozen place and they're just waiting for someone else to push them through this unknown space. At a certain point in our careers, we don't have anyone who's going to push us through to be like, go through this cave of unknown. You have to walk the path yourself.
Yeah.
As you reflect on your career, it looks like you naturally gravitate towards these opportunities. Walk us through, how did you get through looking fear in its face and saying, I'm going to do it anyway?
That resilience comes from growing up in Jamaica. A lot of times we're not presented with opportunities like others are, and you basically have to figure it out. It's like that sink or swim mentality. Well, I guess ran in the face of fear because it is an emotion, just like joy is an emotion. You just got to know how to channel it. Knowing how to do that and understanding that it's okay to be fearful, but it's also important to move, make a decision and act on something is what keeps me going. I've always been the type of person that's self-driven because no one's coming to get you. I've always understood no one's coming to get me. No one's going to help me figure it out. So I just get up and do what I need to do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream, If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
I love that. And I resonate with this so much. For our audience that may not know, I'm also Jamaican. And so this clearly is going to be my favorite episode. I think there is something very real to what you're saying. I can only imagine, Archita, it might be similar in India. Our countries don't have these big programs where we're helping everyone and we're guiding everyone and we're investing in everyone and we're talking about psychological safety. And Jamaicans are like, do you want this or not? Are you going to figure it out or not? That is basically the culture there. You develop this mental toughness to say, what is it that you want? And this is so important for our audience that have been with us for multiple seasons. Now they're going to be like, all right, here goes Olivia on her soapbox again. The biggest killer of fear is to identify what it is that you want and then be relentless in the pursuit of it. If you know what you are after and you have decided, come hell or high water, this is going to happen, guess what's going to happen? You're going to figure it out. But it's when we're wishy-washy or you don't know why you're sitting in this seat, or maybe you took on a venture that you're not really passionate about, or you haven't made up your mind about what it is that you want, that the fear takes hold. I saw this thing on Instagram. There was a woman and she was talking about, she was an entrepreneur and she was like, sometimes I'm riddled by fear. I want to make this post on LinkedIn, but I'm afraid of how people will respond. And the person she was talking to said, what are you more focused on? And she said, well, helping the people that I want to help. And then he was like, well, then go help them. Fear tends to be an inch deep and a mile wide. And Kezia, you said something really important. You said movement. Just make a move. One step at a time, even if it's a little step, even if you have to crawl, if you just do something, you will realize that you've concocted the story in your head and you're actually going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I do that a lot. I am very in my head, and sometimes I need a moment to meditate and think. You're freaking out for no reason. I get in my head and just, oh my gosh, the world's going to end and I don't know this and I can't figure it out, but the world's not going to end. You're not going to die. Just figure it out. You'll be fine. And you said something about having this fear of people's perceptions when it comes to content creation. Listen, that's the game. Social media nowadays is very mean. People are just going to be mean for no reason. So are you going to be paralyzed by this fear and not create content that can help people? Or are you going to crawl into a shell and not do anything about it because you fear the opinions of people who are probably not brave enough to do what you're doing?
I hear you on the content creation. There's this whole concept as well about the spotlight effect, right? The psychological phenomena where we believe everybody is looking at us, but actually nobody gives a shit. Like literally nobody cares. And I remember early in my content journey, I've been at this thing for a year now, but I've been really like focused on doing some things, like missing the mark terribly. Like I am way off my goals, but I'm committed to it because I let go of the fact that, oh, everybody is watching. This is what I want to do to help these kinds of people. And then I have to constantly check in about, am I working hard only, or am I also working smart? Because sometimes when you have this resilience, you can just keep going down a path. You will forget on check-ins to be like, are you still working towards what you wanted and the goals that you wanted? You get sidetracked, you get distracted in the content world with followers and all of this other nonsense. Like, I know every 2 weeks when somebody in one of my groups posts like, oh, I just hit 20,000, I want to throw up. I've been on this platform for 10 years. What the heck am I doing wrong? But then I'm just like, okay, what's my goal? At the same time, if there are lots of listeners, I know Olivia is one of them, who should be on these spaces more, creating content more, because they have so many gems to share. And it's not complicated because they wake up, they say something, and it's so valuable. Anytime I get on a call with Olivia, it's just value, right? And the same with so many of our audience members. So if someone's just starting on their journey to start sharing their voice and the fear of sounding stupid, what would you say, Kezia, to help them get past the point to start exercising their voice out in words on these internet streets?
I would say to start out, just create content for yourself. Create content that you love, create content you enjoy making, happiness. Because if you focus on what people like, what people want, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? Are they going to hate it? You just bury yourself into a hole deeper and deeper. And before you know it, you can't even get out. What I started to do now, like I used to post content more consistently, but now I'm just like, I have a life outside of social media, and that's where my consistency is going to be. Not so much being consistent on social and posting 5 times a day and doing this and doing that. For me right now, that's not my priority. Once I let go of that, I let go of worrying about the metrics and the engagement and the algorithm. There's life happening outside of social media. For me right now, that's more meaningful.
I love that. And I think that's such an important point. Actually, I wrote that down. Just create content that you love. My struggle, and Archita talks about me so bad because I refuse to consistently post on LinkedIn. She keeps telling me to, but I think you're right. When you're navigating in the space that I'm in, I'm still in corporate, but I'm also doing a lot of passion work like this, coaching, advising, doing keynote speaking and things like that. My side hustles bring me so much joy. But then when Archita says, girl, get your life together, post on LinkedIn, post on Instagram, do this, do that, then it's just like work. It's like another thing to overstimulate me. And then it sucks the enjoyment out of it. I think your point is very well taken. And I'm going to take that one home for myself. Just create content that you love. So I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit here. Let's go back to your journey through corporate. Because I think you've had a number of roles before you became the CMO. And, as an immigrant, Archita and I both are as well, when you're navigating those entry-level spaces on your path to where you want to be, you tend to experience loneliness, right? Especially in FinTech, where you're operating right now. So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey? Maybe just an overview of leaving Jamaica at 16 and then maybe your first corporate job, the roles that you had, and some of the major milestones or significant obstacles you had to overcome to get to where you are.
Okay, so I left Jamaica when I was 16 and I started college about 3 or 4 years after that. I did jobs to pay the bills while in school. After I finished my associates in Springfield, Mass., I moved to New Jersey in 2006 and I started my bachelor's in graphic design. I went to art school and worked at a few corporate jobs there in Edison. I also interned with 17 Magazine, NBC Universal, USA Today. So that was my introduction into the corporate world. After I did my bachelor's, I went back for my master's in marketing. During that period, I completed an entrepreneurship course, and that's how I got the entrepreneurship bug. I feel like I was always entrepreneurial, but that's when it really settled in. Okay, this is what I want to do. So when I graduated, I really didn't go into corporate. I bounced around a little bit because, again, in my head, what do I want to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And then I just started Kizkopop in 2018 and figured it out from there. And here we are.
I love it. You make it seem so easy. And I know it wasn't. But you said some really big names where we hear all the time, like there is a lot of probably times where you've had to potentially experience the journey of being an only. So could you share an example of like how you navigated it early in your career, especially when you came to the US, you started all these internships? Because have had my fair share when I got off my quote unquote boat from India on a propeller plane, actually, into Houghton, Michigan. And just experiencing truly not seeing anyone like me in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then starting my internships in the mid, being the first woman engineer, the only woman in that entire manufacturing plant, woman of color in the entire manufacturing plant, thousands of people. And so there were lots of these experiences that shaped my initial focus on this thing that we talk about a lot, which is code switching, where I would show up a certain way with my team members because I had to speak in a certain way because I have my Indian accent and it's not going to disappear, and I didn't want it to disappear because this is who I am. But I had to shape shift in so many different ways. What was that experience for you? If you could walk us through that a little bit, and how did you navigate?
So that's interesting that you said that. I felt like I had to do the same thing because I was always cognizant of my accent. I want to make sure I sound like this. I don't know if it was shame, but I always wanted to sound like everyone else. And going through my journey, I realized that's to the detriment of who I am as a person, because your uniqueness is what makes you stand out. So I've always also had this feeling like I am the only because of how I think or how I express myself. Sometimes people say, oh, you can't say that or you can't do that. And it's, well, why not? And there's no valid explanation. So I felt like I had to shrink myself or don't be too much of this or too much of that because somebody's going to have a problem. I think over the years, I've gotten more comfortable with who I am, my uniqueness, and embracing my personality more and not buying into other people's opinions or expectations of what I should be, what I should be doing, how I should sound, and all of that.
For all of us, we have these experiences, right? You hit a certain point in your career and something usually triggers this where you're like, you know what? I do not care. I officially no more care about what Archita and I labeled the noise.
Right.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, trying to fit in. You lose yourself trying to fit into what you think you should become or what you think you need to become. Then something happens, or maybe it's a series of some things that happen that makes you be like, you guys are crazy. I am fine. I'm
Right.
about to run my own race. What was that for you?
So that for me was meeting Christo with him. He's awesome. He's a design legend, business, marketing, everything. So I met him in 2019, and imagine me, this introverted girl. We're doing a Zoom and the camera comes on me and he's, oh, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Kezia and I'm going to do XYZ. They're like, oh, and I'm just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to care about people's opinions. I'm not going to worry about how people perceive me. I'm just going to be myself. And I want to make a living just being myself. I don't want to have to censor myself or shrink myself, hide or anything like that. I'm super private, super introverted, but I also am myself. I'm the same online, offline, and what is just what you get. You like it. If you don't, nice meeting you.
Can I applaud this? Because Kezia, this is the way I live my life. I am not everyone's cup of tea. You know why? Because I'm expensive tea. Amazing tea. Like I am not going to be for everybody's palate. And it's totally fine. There's magic in what you're saying though, Kezia, because you cannot do anything of significance in this world alone. When you betray your authenticity, your people can't find you.
Right.
The people sent here to help you on your journey cannot find you because you are too busy trying to be everybody else. I want to hammer this point home for the audience. Ladies, you cannot do whatever it is you're doing alone. If you can do it alone, it's not big enough. You're not dreaming big enough, right? If you are having these big, audacious dreams, like the delusional, I want all of us to be delulu. Your dreams should be so outrageous that people are like, okay, this one has lost it. That's how big the dream needs to be, you're going to need a village. Your network is important. And what is so important to attract the right network is to be you. And don't be afraid if people leave, girl, let them go. You have to make room. You go through a process of loss when you start to become your authentic self. And some of the loss hurts. It could be close friends. Heck, it could even be family members. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I've experienced it. I know Archita has experienced it, where they're just like, we don't know what you're doing. That's fine. The people that are supposed to help you on your journey will find you if you choose to be brave enough to live authentically.
Exactly. And I know doing that on social media is hard because it seems like it's 500 people looking at you and you're just one person and they're telling you, you suck, you're not good. And after a while, you question yourself like, wow, am I just delusional? But you have to this faith and belief in yourself that no, you're not delusional. You are who you are. And you're just going to put that out there and forge forward. If people don't like it, great. I've had people comment on my content, wow, you're not good. No one's going to hire you. Nobody likes you. You're ugly. You're this, you're that. It's like, all right, peace.
What people don't realize is most people project. If we realized how often humans project, you would realize that is them just talking to themselves.
Right.
Right? It's the way they feel about themselves that they're unleashing on you for whatever unknown reason, probably because you're out there doing what they wish that they could do, but they're not having success in it. So ladies, kill the noise. Everything that Kezia is talking about is what Archita and I label as noise. It's going to come, but just let it flow like water around you. And you stand firm what you're doing because those opinions do not matter. And the ones that do matter will find you. Just stay the course.
Gosh, and Kezia, Olivia here is dropping some gems here herself. She stand firm like the water flow around you. You have made so many different transitions and pivots in many different ways. Having gone through a significant transition myself, leaving the corporate world after 20 years, it was easier than stepping into the solopreneurship world. This conversation about the process of letting go, because you're going to have a sense of loss. You're going to lose a lot of even parts of yourself as you let go of parts of yourself in this transition. We were chatting and you hinted at this on one of your most recent LinkedIn posts about an upcoming transition. It's a significant transition for a lot of folks to consider. Help walk us through what brought you here and how you're navigating that sense of loss of different parts of yourself as you embrace this new self in your journey.
I've been in the creative space for over 20 years, and I feel like I'm just ready for something else, something different. And I'm not afraid to try new things. I'm not afraid of people's opinions of me trying new things. I know family members would be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing now? Maximize your potential. And I feel like I'm at that stage right now where I want to do something more meaningful, more impactful for the world on a bigger scale. Yes, writing and showing people how to write helps some people, but I feel like the path I'm on now can create a bigger impact, have more meaning in my life and create more meaning for someone else. That's the journey I'm on right now.
Yes, and I heard what she's going to be doing, and I'm super excited, but I'll let you announce it to the world when you do. I know for a fact you're going to make such a big difference on so many people's lives because you're an amazing listener and you create so much space. I confessed to her, Olivia, when we first got on, I was like, I'm going to just keep talking. So if you need me to shut up, just tell me to be like, Achita, can you shut up for a minute? I just want to hear my thoughts. That's okay. You create space. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing to have. So I'm excited for your transition. Are you afraid in any way, shape, or form? Not in a bad way, because fear is not bad either. But are you afraid of parts of yourself that you might lose as you transition into this new exciting thing you're going to be going on?
I think there are parts of myself that can be adapted to what I'm going to be doing. So as far as losing parts of myself, no. And that's a part of the brand strategist or former brand strategist in me is knowing how to reposition and make it work for this new thing.
Because I love your confidence in yourself, right? You were so sure I love that because there are so many women. We are not firm in that. And we had two guests before you that were more tenured ladies. They were so sure. When we asked them, why are you so sure? And they were like, girl, 60 years of life experience. For you, you're so much younger, but you have the same firmness in your direction, in your belief in yourself, in what you want out of life, that you're like, oh, I'm not going to get this shit. That's not going to happen to me because I know what I'm doing. Like I know what I'm after. And I just want to share this with our audience. If you are listening and you're like, man, how do these ladies get so sure? How do they get so firm in their direction? I would like to offer you this explanation. It's because they know what they want. I want your opinions on this. Maybe I'm off, but I think fundamentally, over the thousands of women that I've spoken to on the podcast, one thing holds true. When you are sure about what you want, no one can knock you off your path. If you skip that step, being super sure about what you want, you're going to float around like a ship without a rudder. You're just going to get pushed and pulled by the tides, other people, their agendas and opinions. If you are not sure of where you're going, you may not know how you're going to get there. You need to know where you're headed. Do you agree or do you think there's more to that?
No, I agree. During my early days in undergrad, going through art school, I wasn't sure of what I wanted. I did float around and bounce around, and it was a 4-year degree and it took me 5 years. Why? Because I wasn't sure. Should I try this? Should I do that? What if I miss out on this? Just develop a habit of making a decision and going after it. After those consistent habits, you'll become more confident in your decision making, in making the right decision for you. And eventually you'll just know, okay, this is what I want to do. And this is how I'm going to do it.
I know, Archita, you have a question, but I want to double click on that real quick. Is there an exercise that you do? What is it that you do? Because we want to give our listeners some real practical tools. Obviously, you experience the bouncing around. Everybody has, right? I did it. Archita did it. Sometimes, occasionally, I still do it. And I'm like, dang it, I'm doing it again. And like, you got to pull it, rein it back in, right? What do you do to get sure?
I'm a very strategic person. I like to plan things. I like to write things out. So I do like the pros and cons, like what if this happens, okay, what's the outcome? If it doesn't happen, what's the outcome for that? And it's kind of like balancing the scales. For me, it's just like figuring out what are the positives and negatives of not following through with this and how will it affect me? I don't like to have regrets, just lessons that I learned. So how would it affect me? What would the lesson be? And how can I either minimize that or go full force and make it a reality?
I love it. I think at the end of the day, your upbringing helped build that resilience where you're just like, come high or whatever, low water or whatever that saying is, I'm going to go do it anyway. At least so come what may, you're like, I'm going through this. I'm going to make this happen. But then not just that, you then have clarity in that decision. A lot of times people make a decision, go into it, and then they're stumbling through that decision, finding a way out, which is ridiculous because then you're not giving your whole self into that decision. And what you've walked us through is you build that clarity, make that decision, and then go after it. You recognize there will be pivots, and that's okay. But then at that point in time, you reevaluate your pros, your cons, lessons learned, and then you charge forward again. Being an engineer, sometimes you almost want to have a blueprint like 5 years forward, and you cannot. Like you just, I feel like in our early years of our career, to a certain degree, we can have that, like early in our lives, right?
Yeah.
Not even just careers, earlier in our lives. But as we grow, we accumulate all these experiences. If we still think that what got us through our first years of our careers will be what gets us through the next 45, it's absurd. I think what I'm hearing is that you're adapting to those learnings, but using clarity and decision making as a way to move forward.
I think our biggest obstacle is ourselves, and we need to give ourselves more grace, forgive ourselves for mistakes, and use those lessons to make better decisions going forward.
forgive ourselves for the mistakes we have made. That is a journey, and that's therapy and everything in its own right. But the sooner you get past that point, that drives further clarity, essentially, in helping move forward.
And there's no other way to say it. You are going to make mistakes. Your job is to learn, figure out what you want, and be relentless in the pursuit of it, come what may. You make a mistake, no problem. Be like, well, blew that up. How many mistakes I make daily? Aren't you just probably the same? I probably blew up 50 things at work today. It's all recoverable. We need to stop being so afraid of those mistakes. I'll add this last one because I think it's important and it's top of mind from a conversation at work today. Ladies, we have to change our relationship with feedback. When you get the right people in your corner, they should be giving you feedback if they are there to help you along your way. Your mission is to know who to accept the feedback from.
Yes.
Because like you mentioned, you got feedback on your posts that was non-constructive from idiots that had not earned a space in your mind, right? They were not there to serve a purpose. Well-intended yahoos or non-well-intended yahoos, right? Those are not the people that you make space for to give you feedback. But your village, even if the feedback is spicy and you're like, ow, okay, that hurt, take the feedback. It's a gift to make you better on the other side of it.
Yes, I agree. Feedback is essential if you want to grow, and taking feedback from the right people is also important. Feedback you don't want to hear may bite, but sometimes it's necessary and it gives you that extra perspective that you didn't have before. So I think a lot of feedback can be seen as constructive, even the feedback that come from people that maybe are not your people. You can learn from them, learn how not to be when it comes to giving other people feedback and how you show up in their spaces.
Kezia, you've just been such a joy to have on. You kept that spark burning in brilliance here. For a lot of our listeners, they're always curious to find out how can they work with you? How could they reach out to you? What is the best place for our audience to engage with you?
The best place to engage with me is on LinkedIn. More intimate, more personal there because I show up as myself. If you want to learn about what I do, you can follow me on Instagram at Kizkopop.
Fabulous. We'll have all of those links and a couple of other links as well in our show notes. We're so grateful and thankful for you making space and time to join us in this conversation. And thank you for bringing all the clarity you did in these past 40 minutes. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Kezia. Thank you for joining us on the Embracing Only podcast.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.